Respect is not begged for, it is imposed by the way you live. A man does not earn a woman's admiration by what he promises or what he gives, but by the firmness with which he stands in the face of life. She does not respect the one who bends over backwards to please. She respects the one who masters himself before trying to master the world. Because true attractiveness is not in empty flattery or desperate attention, but in the calm that is maintained when everything around is crumbling, in the discipline that marks every decision, and in the consistency that is not negotiated for anyone. A man who can say no without fear, who does not chase or beg for attention, who leads with purpose and not with whims, becomes someone who inspires natural respect. He does not need to disguise insecurity with grand gestures or fall into the game of wanting to control what does not depend on him. His strength lies in his self-control, in the serenity he projects, and in the clarity of a path he follows with firm steps. This video does not aim to teach you how to please. It aims to show you how to transform yourself into a man who does not need to ask for recognition, because he generates it with his mere presence. Here you will understand that the key is to master your emotions, to build a solid character, and to establish boundaries that protect your dignity. Stay until the end, because what you will learn will not only change the way women perceive you, but the way you perceive yourself. Honor, the power to say no without fear. A man without the ability to say no is like an overflowing river. His water runs in any direction, feeds what it shouldn't, and ends up losing its strength. When you don't know how to refuse, your energy, your time, and your respect are diluted in unnecessary commitments, in favors that are never reciprocated, and in concessions that only show weakness. A man who fears to say no sooner or later becomes a slave to the expectations of others, and worse, a slave to the approval of the woman he seeks to impress. Respect is lost the moment she notices that your word is malleable, that your boundaries crumble as soon as pressure is applied to them. Saying no is not an act of selfishness, it is an act of self-control. It is the way to show that your life has direction and that you are not willing to deviate for any external whim. When a man responds with an automatic yes, what he conveys is not generosity, but fear of confrontation and dependence on the acceptance of others. The woman respects the one who knows how to set limits, because those limits are a reflection of his character and the clarity with which he defends his purpose. She understands that behind every no pronounced calmly and firmly, there is a man who values himself. To avoid falling into the mistake of always yielding, the first piece of advice is to identify your priorities. If you don't know what is really important to you, you will end up accepting anything just to avoid discomfort. Ask yourself the question, does this contribute to my purpose, or does it take me away from it? If it doesn't add, the answer should be no, without the need for excessive justification or long explanations. Your no is worth more when it is simple and firm. It doesn't need adornments. The second piece of advice is to practice discomfort. Saying no will never be easy, especially if you have been used to pleasing for years. Start with the small things. Reject favors that you know steal your time. Avoid social commitments that don't interest you. Set untouchable schedules for yourself. Practice will strengthen you, and over time, your refusal will stop feeling like guilt and become a natural habit. The third piece of advice is to take care of the tone. It's not about shouting or sounding aggressive, it's about speaking calmly. A no said calmly weighs more than 1,000 excuses said nervously. The woman perceives that calmness as security, and security always generates respect. Remember that it's not what you say, but how you hold it. If you doubt, if you justify yourself too much, your no loses value. But if you hold it firmly, your no becomes a reminder that you are the owner of your life. The fourth piece of advice is not to negotiate your dignity. Never say yes to something that compromises your integrity, your values, or your inner peace. Every time you accept the unacceptable for fear of losing someone, the one who truly gets lost is you. Respect is not obtained by being flexible until breaking, but by being firm even in discomfort. The power to say no is the beginning of self-control. It is the first sign that you are not willing to give your energy to anyone or to submit to what does not represent you. The man who learns to say no without fear stops being an overflowing river and becomes a firm channel that directs his waters towards where he wants his life to flourish. That man does not need to please to be respected because his mere coherence speaks for him. 2. The calm that commands respect. The sea in the midst of a storm drags ships, destroys coasts, and leaves chaos and fear in its wake. However, when it returns to calm, it reveals all its grandeur. This serenity does not mean absence of strength, but absolute control of it. The same happens with the man who learns to control his inner self. He does not waste his energy on unnecessary explosions. He reserves it for moments when it really matters. This calm commands respect because it conveys that he does not depend on circumstances to maintain control, that the storm can roar outside, but within him exists an unshakable center. Many fall into the trap of believing that reacting with shouts, nerves, or anger is a sign of character, when in reality it is quite the opposite. Showing desperation is showing fragility. Each uncontrolled outburst tells the world that your emotions own you and that any situation can drag you along. And if a woman perceives that your emotions govern your actions, what she finds is not firmness, but insecurity. To build that calm, the first step is to master the moment before reacting. That moment, when the blood boils and the mouth opens to respond, is your opportunity to decide who has control, you or the emotion. Breathe deeply, keep a second of silence, and then act. That brief pause is what separates the respected man from the one who regrets later. Each time you manage to maintain that pause, you strengthen the image of someone who does not easily break. The second key is to train the mind daily. Calm is not improvised, it is trained like a muscle. Meditating in silence, writing your thoughts, or even exercising your body are ways to channel energy so that it does not explode chaotically. Daily discipline becomes the foundation of serenity. Many waste their energy on useless arguments just to prove they are right. This need to impose oneself reveals weakness rather than strength. The calm that commands respect is not flight, it is selection. Keeping silent about the trivial and speaking firmly only on important matters gives weight to your words. A woman perceives the difference between the one who argues about everything and the one who speaks little but with authority. The fourth point is in your body language. Serenity is seen as much as it is heard. Walking unhurriedly, maintaining eye contact without nervousness, speaking in a stable and paced tone are signals that convey security. Anxiety is betrayed by abrupt movements, trembling voices, or impatience. The calm in your body reinforces the calm in your mind and projects respect even without the need for words. Being calm is not about allowing abuses or being passive. True calm is the conscious control of strength. A woman respects the one who knows how to restrain himself, but also acts decisively when the situation demands it. Serenity is contained power, a force that does not need to explode to make itself felt. The man who maintains calm in the midst of chaos shows that his power does not depend on the opinion of others or external pressure. This silent calm turns him into a firm presence, someone who inspires trust and security. Just like the sea after the storm, his serenity reveals that within him there is a grandeur that does not need noise to be respected. 3. A purpose stronger than any desire. The compass never gets distracted by the lights on the path. It always points north regardless of the distractions that appear around. That constancy is what gives meaning to the journey, because without a fixed course, even the most skilled navigator ends up lost. The same happens with a man. When he lives guided by a solid purpose, his steps transmit direction and strength, but when he is carried away by momentary desires or other people's whims, he becomes easy to manipulate. Women immediately perceive this difference because the one who has a course inspires trust and respect, while the one who does not have it seems like a drifting ship seeking approval in every port. The absence of purpose turns many men into prisoners of validation. They rise without clarity, improvise their goals, and let any impulse control them. They seek to please with gifts, with excessive attention, with desperate gestures, but what they really show is emptiness. Respect arises when she sees that your life does not revolve around her approval, but is guided by something bigger than even her. The first advice to build that purpose is to know yourself with brutal honesty. Ask yourself what really drives your life, what values you are not willing to negotiate, and what goals are worth your daily effort. Without that clarity, any desire will be enough to distract you. Women respect the man who knows what he wants because that knowledge makes him someone stable and secure, someone who does not get lost with the superficial. The second advice is to set goals that go beyond immediate pleasure. Whoever lives only to satisfy momentary desires shows that he has no control over himself. Respect is earned when your decisions reveal that you think in the long term, that you work on projects and goals that require discipline. Investing in your personal development, in your career, in your physical and mental strength, conveys that your energy is at the service of something bigger than any passing impulse. The third advice is to learn to sacrifice the attractive but useless. Not everything that shines contributes to your purpose. The ability to give up what does not add shows a strength that is immediately perceived. Women respect the man who knows how to choose, who says no to tempting distractions to stay on the path of what really matters. That ability to prioritize is a sign of maturity and personal mastery. The fourth advice is to demonstrate with actions, not with words. It is useless to talk about goals or dreams if your daily actions contradict what you say. The coherence between what you declare and what you do is the basis of respect. A purpose is revealed in how you live, not in how you speak. Women admire the one who upholds with discipline what he promises, not the one who changes direction every time a new temptation appears. The fifth advice is to understand that your purpose should never depend on another person. Sharing it is valid, but never putting it in someone else's hands. If your course is defined by what she approves or disapproves of, you have already lost authority. Respect arises when your purpose is so strong that nothing external breaks it. That independence makes you attractive because she sees in you someone who governs himself and does not need to ask for permission to be who he is. 4. The value of not chasing attention. The shadow always follows the one who walks, but never respects the one who tries to reach it. The more you chase it, the further it moves away. And when you stop looking for it, it naturally remains behind you. That's how attention works. It flees from those who beg for it, but accompanies those who focus on moving forward without depending on it. A man who runs after glances, compliments, or recognition becomes predictable, manipulable, and weak. Women perceive this immediately because no one respects those who beg for what should come on its own. The mistake of many is to believe that attention is synonymous with value. They post every detail of their life to be seen, exaggerate romantic gestures to be approved, strive to be the center of a conversation. But this desperate search reflects emptiness. The more you insist on being noticed, the more you convey insecurity. Respect is born from independence, from the ability to show that your life has its own direction, even if no one applauds. Women do not respect men who beg for attention. They respect those who show they do not need it to stand. The first piece of advice to avoid this trap is to understand that attention is an effect, not a goal. If your goal is to be seen, you will always end up depending on the external. But if your goal is to grow, improve, build, and move forward, attention will come on its own. Work on yourself, strengthen your body, your mind, and your skills, and you will see that the world starts to look without you having to raise your voice. The attention earned by real merit is much more powerful than that asked for with desperate acts. The second piece of advice is to eliminate validation as daily food. Many men live pending the phone, waiting for a message, a reaction on social networks, or a sign of approval. This dependency consumes energy and reflects a lack of control. Change the focus. Use that time on projects that add to your life. When you reduce your need for validation, your value multiplies, because you are no longer a slave to what others think or say. The third piece of advice is to watch your actions in the presence of women. A common mistake is to overcompensate with excessive gestures, unnecessary favors, or empty words just to gain sympathy. This behavior does not generate respect. It generates momentary comfort in the other person, but without real admiration. Learn to give from abundance, not from need. Do it because you want to, not because you expect to receive something in return. This difference is immediately noticeable and transforms how you are perceived. The fourth piece of advice is to cultivate silence. Not everything needs to be shared. Not everything needs to be exposed for others to recognize it. Discretion generates mystery, and mystery generates respect. The less you chase being seen, the more interest you generate. Women respect men who do not need to shout who they are, because their presence, their actions, and their way of walking already convey a clear message. The one who speaks less and demonstrates more will always be remembered with greater force. The fifth piece of advice is to keep your attention on what really matters. Stop wasting energy trying to impress and focus on your purpose. True attention is earned when people notice your discipline, your consistency, and your ability to move forward without getting distracted. 5. Emotions under your command, not the other way around. Fire can provide warmth or it can destroy an entire house. It all depends on who handles it. Emotions work in the same way. They are pure energy. But if you leave them uncontrolled, they ravage your life, your relationships, and your respect. A woman may admire a man's passion, but she will never respect someone who allows himself to be carried away by impulses that make him lose control. Because strength is not measured in shouts, in fits of jealousy, or in outbursts of anger. It is measured in the ability to keep the mind firm even when the heart burns. The most common mistake is to think that mastering emotions means repressing them or pretending they do not exist. That attitude only accumulates them until they explode. True mastery lies in recognizing what you feel, but not allowing that to decide for you. When a man acts out of anger, euphoria, or sadness, he shows that his will is weak. Respect comes from emotional stability, from the security you convey when what you feel does not break you. The first piece of advice to achieve this command is to learn to observe without reacting. When the emotion appears, your first impulse will be to act, but that is the moment when you should stop. Ask yourself the question, what would happen if I act right now? What would happen if I wait? That pause allows you to respond with logic instead of uncontrolled instinct. Every second that you manage to keep your response under control reinforces your internal authority. The second piece of advice is to train the mind with small daily challenges. Test your patience in everyday life, traffic, waiting, unforeseen events. If you overflow in the small things, you will inevitably fail in the big ones. Controlling emotions is like strengthening a muscle. It needs constant repetition. Keeping everything in absolute silence is not strength, it is rigidity. Speaking clearly, without shouting or drama, shows that you master what you feel instead of being dominated. Saying, "I am upset about this," calmly commands more respect than an outburst of anger. The man who knows how to communicate what he feels firmly and calmly shows a level of control that few achieve. The fourth piece of advice is to identify the triggers. We all have weak points that make us react more intensely: a criticism, a mockery, a lack of attention. Knowing them is the key to not falling into the trap. If you know what destabilizes you, you can prepare to face it with more control. Respect is strengthened when she sees that what used to provoke you no longer disarms you, that you are no longer a slave to your vulnerabilities. The fifth piece of advice is to maintain physical and mental discipline. An exhausted body and a saturated mind are fertile ground for loss of control. Sleeping well, exercising, and maintaining routines of mental clarity, such as meditation, help you to keep your emotions under your command and not the other way around. Discipline not only strengthens the body, it also orders the mind and with it, emotional stability. The man who masters his emotions does not need to demonstrate power with shouts or violence. His strength lies in his ability to keep the fire under control, to use it to illuminate rather than destroy. That ability projects security and confidence, and that's where true respect is born. Because a woman knows that if a man can govern his emotions, he can govern any aspect of his life. 6. The consistency that defines your character. The bridge that withstands the passage of time is not held up by the paint that covers it, but by the solidity of its pillars. If these foundations are firm, every storm passes without toppling it. But if they are full of cracks, sooner or later, it will come down. This is how consistency works in a man. It is the invisible pillar that supports his character. It's not about what he says in public or what he promises in moments of enthusiasm, but how his actions coincide with his words. A woman can listen to 1,000 speeches, but what she really observes is whether what you do confirms what you say. Inconsistency destroys respect faster than any mistake. Saying that you value your time and then wasting it on constant distractions, talking about discipline and being a slave to your impulses, promising firmness and falling at the first external pressure, all this sends a clear message. Your word is worthless, and when the woman perceives that crack, no matter how attractive your speech is, trust is broken. Respect is earned when your entire life is proof that your values do not bend according to the convenience of the moment. The first piece of advice for building consistency is to commit to less, but to fulfill it with everything. Many men make the mistake of talking too much, of promising what they do not have the discipline to sustain. Respect does not come from grand declarations, but from the ability to deliver in everyday life. If you say you will be on time, do it. If you say you will work on something, fulfill it. Every small action accomplished reinforces your character and projects that your word is reliable. The second piece of advice is to live under principles, not under emotions. Your values should be the guide that determines your decisions, even when they are not convenient or easy. The woman respects the man who keeps his word, even though it costs him, because that sacrifice reflects greatness. On the other hand, the one who changes his mind with every impulse is perceived as weak and unreliable. Consistency is built when you choose to act according to your principles and not according to your mood. The third piece of advice is to align your public and private life. It is useless to project an image of strength on the street if in your privacy you are a slave to vices, fears, or contradictions. True respect is born when the woman discovers that you are the same in all scenarios, that your essence does not change depending on who is looking at you. This transparency generates admiration because it reflects integrity, and integrity is the root of all solid character. The fourth piece of advice is to correct firmly when you fail. Nobody is perfect, and pretending to be only weakens your authenticity. but the difference lies in how you face your mistakes. The inconsistent man justifies them, hides them, or repeats them. The consistent man recognizes them, assumes them, and corrects them. This ability to face the consequences of your actions strengthens your respect, because it demonstrates maturity and responsibility. The fifth piece of advice is to choose a path and stick to it. Consistency does not mean rigidity, it means direction. You can adjust, you can learn, but you cannot make opposite turns every time a difficulty appears. Every time you hold your course, even in discomfort, you reinforce your character. The woman respects the one who stands firm, even though the wind blows against him, because she knows that this man does not bend under pressure or change according to the environment. 7. Boundaries that protect your dignity. A wall is not built to enclose, it is raised to protect what is valuable within it. Without limits, any enemy can enter, any wind can sweep away, and any stranger can dispose of what does not belong to him. This happens with men who do not establish clear barriers in their life. They allow others to decide for them, to use their time, to manipulate their emotions, and to play with their dignity. A woman can take advantage of this, but she will never respect it, because nobody admires someone who gives away without measure what he should defend. Boundaries are not walls of arrogance, they are expressions of self-respect. A man who does not know how to say "up to here" projects insecurity and dependence. This lack of firmness makes him manipulable, someone who prefers to lose his value rather than inconvenience another. On the other hand, when a man establishes clear lines that no one crosses, he shows that his dignity is not for sale and that his life has order. This attitude commands respect because it reflects inner strength, conviction, and clarity of who he is. The first piece of advice is to identify what things are non-negotiable in your life. It could be your work time, your rest, your values, your most important relationships. If you do not define them, anyone can step on that ground. Write down these priorities and commit to defending them. Every time you uphold a boundary, you reinforce the idea that your life is not available to be used for the convenience of others. The second piece of advice is to communicate your boundaries calmly. It's not about imposing them with shouts or anger, but about expressing them clearly and firmly. "I can't do this," or "I don't accept being treated this way," said calmly, carries more weight than an uncontrolled reaction. A woman perceives this security in your way of speaking and understands that you are not an easy man to manipulate. Calm firmness is always more respected than empty aggression. The third piece of advice is to uphold the boundaries consistently. It is useless to say that you do not tolerate certain behavior if you then allow it over and over again. Every time you give in to what you said you would not accept, your word loses value. Respect is built when your actions confirm that your dignity is not negotiable. Even if at first someone gets upset, over time they will understand that your consistency reflects a solid character. The fourth piece of advice is not to fear the losses that come with boundaries. Some men allow abuses for fear of being alone, losing a relationship, or disappointing someone. This attitude destroys respect because it shows dependence. The reality is that boundaries filter out what is not good for you and attract what really deserves to be in your life. A woman may walk away if she does not accept your boundaries, but the one who stays will do so because she understands that you are worth more than she can manipulate. Boundaries are not chains. They are walls that protect your dignity. A man who knows how to establish them does not break under pressure, nor does he lower himself to be accepted. Just like a firm wall, he stands tall because he understands that what he keeps inside is too valuable to give to just anyone. And that value, that clarity, and that firmness are what awaken true respect for you to understand. 8. Lead your life with a firm step. The lighthouse on the coast does not chase after ships, nor does it try to draw attention with shouts. It simply remains lit and firm, guiding with its light. It does not need to move to demonstrate power, because its mere presence conveys direction. Such should be the life of a man seeking respect, not begging to be followed, but clearly holding a course that others recognize without the need for words. A woman does not respect the one who improvises. She respects the one who walks with confidence, the one who shows that he knows where he is going, even if the path is difficult. The confusion of many lies in believing that leading life means controlling others. Nothing could be further from the truth. Whoever tries to manipulate and dominate becomes an insecure tyrant who seeks to make up for his lack of character with power. Leading with a firm step means controlling yourself first, showing that your actions, your discipline, and your consistency have an order and a purpose. Only then can you inspire respect, because no one trusts someone who contradicts themselves, but everyone observes the one who stands firm. The first piece of advice is to clearly define your goals. It is not enough to live reacting to what happens. You need your own course. When your life is governed by what others expect of you, you lose authority. A woman immediately perceives if you walk by your own decision or for the approval of others. Set goals that reflect your essence and let your life speak through them. A man with a defined course always stands out among those who wander aimlessly. The second piece of advice is to cultivate consistency. Walking with a firm step does not mean running at full speed. It means moving forward without stopping, even if the spirit is lacking. Discipline is the proof that you lead your life, because it shows that you do not depend on passing motivation. When you maintain habits, when you fulfill what you promise, your presence conveys stability. A woman respects that consistency because she knows that the one who stands firm in the small things will stand firm in the big things. The third piece of advice is to take responsibility for each decision. Blaming the environment, people, or luck is the way out for the weak. Whoever leads their life understands that the course depends on their choices and that even mistakes are part of their learning. Recognizing your failures without excuses and correcting them with actions projects maturity and character. Respect is earned when you show that nothing external defines your destiny more than you yourself. The fourth piece of advice is to get up every time you fall. The firm path is not the one that never stumbles, but the one that never gives up. Resilience is one of the strongest signs of personal leadership. Falling does not make you less. Staying on the ground does. Every time you get up with more determination, you send the message that your spirit is not broken. And that silent strength commands respect, because it makes clear that your value does not depend on comfort, but on your ability to resist. The fifth piece of advice is to walk with humility. True firmness does not need arrogance or ostentation. The lighthouse does not boast of its light, it simply projects it. In the same way, leading your life does not require you to announce it. It is enough to demonstrate it day after day. Humility combined with determination generates authentic respect, because it reflects that your strength is real and does not need to be adorned. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.